Can a victim become a perpetrator? This is the question that looms over the story of Gypsy Rose Blanchard. The early years of Gypsy's life were a labyrinth of deception, orchestrated by her own mother, Dee Blanchard. Dee, a woman tormented by Munchausen syndrome by proxy, spun a web of lies so dense that it ensnared not just her daughter but an entire community. Gypsy, born in the tranquil town of Golden Meadow, Louisiana, was trapped in a world of make-believe illness and unnecessary medical treatments. The mother, the puppet master in this tragic tale, convinced everyone around that Gypsy was plagued with an array of health issues, but the reality was far from it. Gypsy was not sick. She could walk, she could talk, she could live a normal life if only her mother had allowed it. But as Gypsy grew older, the veil of deception began to lift. She began to question her mother's narratives. The realization that she had been a pawn in her mother's twisted game was a bitter pill to swallow. But with this newfound understanding came a desperation for freedom, a longing to escape the clutches of her mother's manipulation. In her desperation for freedom, Gypsy found herself on a path that would blur the lines between victim and perpetrator. Gypsy's quest for freedom took a dark turn when she decided to involve her then-boyfriend, Nicholas Godejohn. The plan they concocted was sinister, chilling, and meticulously plotted. Gypsy, the seemingly innocent victim of her mother's twisted mind games, was far more involved than one might initially believe. To begin with, it was Gypsy who stole the fatal weapon, a knife, which would ultimately end her mother's life. This act alone shifts the narrative from Gypsy being a mere accessory to the crime to a principal accomplice. She didn't just passively stand by, she actively facilitated the murder, and it didn't stop there. Gypsy also stole money, which she sent to Nicholas. These funds were used to arrange his travel and accommodation, ensuring he could be present to execute their macabre plan. Once again, Gypsy was not simply a bystander, she was an active participant, meticulously arranging the elements of this horrifying crime. On the night of the murder, Gypsy was waiting. She didn't hide in fear or attempt to distance herself from the violence about to unfold. She stood at the door, knife in hand, ready to let Nicholas in. The narrative of Gypsy being a passive victim starts to crumble when we consider these facts. She was not just an abused daughter seeking escape, she was a key player in a brutal crime. She manipulated the situation, using Nicholas as an instrument of her will. With her mother's death, Gypsy thought she had found her freedom. But the law had a different perspective. Following her mother's murder, Gypsy found herself in the public eye, but not as a helpless victim, rather as a convicted murderer. The trial that ensued was a whirlwind, with Gypsy's past abuse under the spotlight. But what became clear was her undeniable role in the crime. She served 8.5 years in prison, a sentence that sparked a mixed bag of reactions. Some saw her as a victim, trapped in a cycle of abuse. Others, however, saw her as a schemer who manipulated her boyfriend, Nicholas, into committing a heinous act. Her attempts to deflect blame onto Nicholas raised eyebrows. Despite her active involvement in the planning and execution of the crime, Gypsy refused to see herself as a murderer. She stole the knife, she sent Nicholas the money, and she was the one who opened the door for him that fateful night, knife in hand. Yet she insists she isn't a murderer. Since her release, Gypsy's actions have done little to silence her critics. She's tried to reach out to celebrities as if she's a star herself. She's appeared on talk shows, walked the red carpet for a documentary about her life, and even penned an e-book, all while refusing to acknowledge her role in the crime. Despite her tragic past, Gypsy's actions have left many questioning her innocence. Is she a victim turned perpetrator, or simply a master manipulator continuing her mother's legacy? As she continues to play the victim, one can't help but wonder if she's simply shifted the focus from her mother's fabricated illnesses to her own distorted version of events.